You are listening to Information and Inspiration with Jen Julius, helping you take control of your own life by finding clarity, improving your communication, and building confidence to achieve your goals. For more information about me and my guest, you can go to jenjulius.com and check out the radio tab. Today, I have Cindy Jarrett, owner of Designing Access Consulting, shamanic practitioner, co-founder of Horse Journeys, Center for Conscious Evolution, and author. And we are going to be discussing exploring the meaning and results of conscious dating. And I am so excited to have her on the show today. Cindy, thank you so much for being here. I adore you. And so this is going to be such a fun and informative hour because you're the real deal. So
thank you.
I have to start off by asking, what do you do? Where did you come from? And why are you so awesome?
Thanks, Jen. What I do is I'm a communications and relationship consultant. And basically what that means is I teach people how to have great relationships, how to have conscious relationships and healthy relationships, because that is not the norm.
It is not the norm. Welcome to America, right?
Yes, we are toolless in America when it comes to love relationships. And it is why I started my consulting business 27 years ago. And where I come from is was born and raised in the Bay Area, lived most of my life in California, and I'm now currently residing in beautiful Sonoma County with my husband of 31 years and my horse and 2 kitties.
Perfect. Yes, perfect.
Yeah. And why am I awesome? Well, there's many things that could take the hour. Absolutely. But first and foremost, I am a student first and a teacher second. And I think that's so important when you are an authority, when you have people's hearts and minds in your care, that you are continually learning, training, expanding.
Yeah.
And I love consciousness and I love relationships. And it's what I eat, sleep, drink, dream. And so my commitment to people is to end relationship pain. I have a huge body of work toolkit. And it pains me to see people struggle in their relationships when I've proven in 27 years of consulting that all we need is training. And when we get that training, we thrive in our relationships. And so I've helped many, many couples come from the brink of divorce, and I've helped many, many singles find their beloveds and soulmates. And so I love what I do. And that's why I'm awesome.
I love it. And, I really appreciate that you said you're a student first, because when we get to do this work, we're always learning, right?
Yep.
And that's how we keep serving.
Yep.
I don't know. Have you noticed that, you're, this is a rhetorical question for us, but as we shift, our students keep shifting too.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's like this ongoing, we take a step forward, they take a step forward. We're always just sometimes only one tiny baby step ahead. Right.
When I started my consulting business, I threw up a bar of the kind of consultant I wanted to be in it. And I landed that at year 12.
Wow.
And then I thought, wow, I really have attained this. So then I threw up another bar, really as high as one of my spiritual teachers, that I knew I probably would not fully attain that in this human body. And I'm on the path, and I have absolutely seen shifts and changes in my students, how they integrate so much faster, and they just thrive in a real powerful way. So I love it.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate your commitment, as you phrased it, to ending relationship pain. Yeah. What a great mission.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of healers are sharing that mission with you and trying to make that impact in the world.
Yeah.
Because it's huge.
Yeah. Well, I started out as a health professional, and then I was in 2 very strong and powerful, very responsible spiritual communities. And I saw these people struggling with love. And I thought, I've got this huge toolkit, because that's one of my strengths, is I'm able to take trainings and put them into practical, usable formats.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, here's this community that is highly spiritual, yet they're still struggling with love. And it just didn't make sense to me. And so I thought, well, I have all these training pieces and tools. And I just decided, I want to work with that community, really high functioning, well educated, very spiritually connected community, and help them end their relationship pain. And so then that's when I started my consulting business. And the woman who I helped, helped me, that I hired to help me put my consulting business together, she and her husband became my first clients, and I've been busy ever since. So, I'm on to something here, that people want to end their relationship pain. And our relationships everything that happens in our relationships is what we take into the white light. That's what we take with us. Love is all that we own. It is all that we own. We can't take anything from the physical universe. And so it's what we've done with love. It's what we've done in our love relationships.
Oh, I'm excited to explore this more. So I want to, before we move in too far, because I like to just keep all of this very, let's say entry level for people that are just really getting into a lot of this personal growth work and exploring their own development. You mentioned consciousness, being really, really invested in that. And conscious dating, obviously, is the topic we're discussing. So could you define what you mean by consciousness?
Well, I would say it's really, really knowing who you are in terms of what you want and need and require in each situation and scenario. Because if you don't know what you want and need in all situations and scenarios, you can't create. And it's really all about being able to be creative in your life and understanding the heart, how it works, understanding how the head and how it works, and just being very aware of your human wiring. And so knowing who you are physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, which is the weakest link in our culture, the human culture, not just America, but the human culture is really suffering under a lack of development emotionally. And so we're kind of a three-legged table here. So the more you can become conscious at an emotional level, the more you are going to be successful in your relationships long-term and sustaining.
Well, there you have it there. Jeez.
That's my take. Commitment you're ever going to make, like they say monetarily, buying a car or buying a house is the most expensive purchase you probably will make in a lifetime. Maybe owning and starting a business, but so many entrepreneurs now, but but it's, in relationship, it's the beloved relationship because it's the highest demanding one. It demands everything of us, and if there are parts that are missing, it comes to the surface.
Right. Well, because it in relationship is where our biggest vulnerabilities come through too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you don't know how to be vulnerable and real and authentic and ask for what you want and need without shame or without feeling like you're pushy or you're, too demanding or needy, we have needs, we have wants, and we have preferences.
Sure.
And all of them are operative in a beloved relationship.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Boom. Okay. So,
boom.
Well then, Cindy, tell us, how do you teach people to have conscious relationships? In one sentence. Just kidding.
I can't do that. Okay. So here's the deal.
Let's get real here.
So in my consulting business, I work in project format. I'm not a therapist. I don't work in a therapy 50-minute model. I work in an hour and a half to 2-hour sessions. They're training sessions. And so when people come to me, I offer a non-fee consultation. They come, they tell me what they want and need. And so two of the main projects I work with is conscious dating, creating your soulmate. And the other is couples conscious communication training. And so when people sign up for me, I have a body of work and tools and processes to teach people, and it's very individualized because some people have some of the tools or some of the practices and some are missing, and so it gets very individually tailored. And people usually commit for a good 9 months to a year and a half for the in-depth training. And in that process, you learn how to develop yourself, how to emotionally, and how to clear the past and your past patterns. And especially in conscious dating, you have to know kind of the traits that you're attracted to in partners, and what's your reoccurring patterns. That's very important. And also to understand your beliefs, because if you have a negative belief about your, in the object of your love, so whether it's with men or with women, the person that you want to be loving, and you have a negative belief about that whole group of people, you are going to draw to you like a magnet that very person who's going to reflect that negative belief. So if you fear or think men don't commit, you're going to draw in a crowded room all the non-committal men. It just works like that. That's what beliefs do. And see, beliefs are operating from our subconscious, and the subconscious does not care if something is positive or negative. Just does not care. It's just a delivery system. Mm-hmm. And so if you're operating in your relationship off of a set of negative beliefs, then you're going to create negative experiences in your love relationships. So for this consulting, process, it's a high level training, and it's a big commitment that you take on. But it's really about, you're done, you're tired, you've had it with broken hearts or breaking hearts, and you really, really want to break the pattern of that. And so it's a structure for people to come and really get seriously trained. And what I tell people when people come for the conscious dating work, I tell them all your relationships are going to improve. And when they get that about session 3, when it all starts to click and they see the method to my madness, they go, "Oh my God, my relationship with my daughter is better. I'm dealing better with my boss already." And I had no idea. And these are just basic principles that I present. And it's why I wrote the book, because I had my clients tell me, "You need to teach more people." So then I created the conscious dating course. And then those people said, "You got to teach more people." So then I took 9 years to write the book.
Oh, my word.
And the entire training is in my book. If you are self-directive and you want to learn and take it in at a pace that you can digest, which is Path of the Golden Heart, Conscious Dating in an Unconscious World. And that's what we're up against.
A lot of us are asleep.
Yeah.
Right? We're just kind of being led by the media or by whatever.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. This is where I used to have an issue where I still probably do a little bit, where I blame a lot. I'm like, well, it's that, especially my background was working with youth, and I kept seeing so many of the youth following in the parents' footsteps, yet the kids were the ones getting arrested and in trouble and blah, blah. So I kind of blamed the parents, right? But then I went, wait a second, this is a generational issue. They were never shown differently or given tools, right? So we don't know what we don't know,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is where I think with this work, it's first we have to allow ourselves to be aware of the fact that it's not working, we don't have the tools, and kind of also remove the blame. I see that a lot. Like, people will do a lot of self-punishment, like, I can't believe I've done this for 10 years or da-da-da. And it's like, hey, check it out. You were never taught this, shown this, modeled this. They didn't teach it in school. So how could you have? Let's be gentle for a second, right? And just acknowledge, like, whoa, now I'm aware of it. Am I going to choose to learn and do differently?
Yeah. I tell people that, you can forgive your parents for they know not what they were doing, because you really, really can, because you can't blame somebody for something they do not possess. But at the same time, you are still impacted by that being missing. And so you can forgive, but you also come away going, I am still impacted. I must do something. When I graduated from college, about a week later, I got my first therapist, and I worked with her for a year on a conscious, loving divorce from family, essentially, learning how to end codependent. I was as codependent as the day is long, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
And she pointed that out to me. And it began my journey of self-discovery. And then I met my metaphysical teacher, who taught me how to be an emotionally mature spiritual adult through understanding my dark shadow that got me to the light. And you do have to go through the dark to understand and receive the light in yourself. And so It's a process, and I used to say I'm colander woman because I felt like I leaked all over the place. And I thought, well, I could be all upset that I didn't get this, training, or I didn't have this knowledge, or I could just go out and seek it in the world. And that's that I just want to be one more Green Beret for Spirit. I want to help people process and understand their histories and get to a place where they can heal and get the tools and structures and practices that actually have you thrive in relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be part of the conscious choice for change.
Yes.
I love that, right? Can you, real quick, because I always like to break down any type of jargon that we use, can you real quick define what you mean by codependency?
Well, codependence is, there's lots of definitions out there.
I mean, I know it real well. Well,
why don't you?
No, I mean, I know it because I'm in it and I do it and I've been it 10 years ago. Holy cow. 5 years ago. Holy cow. It's finally starting to shift for me.
Well, in the conscious dating context, I think it really comes down to you cannot actively stand for what you know is right and true. You may know what's right and true, but you can't really stand for it, and you keep going back into toxic into relationships that will not deliver, with people who cannot possibly deliver. And you say, well, love heals all things. Well, everybody needs love, and that's really true. But love is not enough. We need many, many more things. Emotional maturity is essential for sustained relationships. And if someone can't deliver in that domain, then you're not with the right person. You're not with someone who's really going to take care of you and or even receive your love that you want to give them. So codependence it's really about not being able to stand for what you know is right and true, which means sometimes walking away from people you love deeply and dearly, but you may not trust them, or they're not trustworthy, or they're not developed enough for the accountabilities of loving another. There's a lot of accountabilities of love in taking care of someone's heart that's in your care and hand.
Right. Thank you for that. And I see codependency too for how I see it in the realm of I think of it a lot with addiction and codependency, right? And so also the way that I think sometimes we all of us codependents out there will often derive so much of our own personal value and worth based upon how much we're supporting another and how good we're doing at it.
Yeah.
Right. And then also almost, and this is typically very subconscious, we don't realize it, but also using our focus upon another to kind of distract from ourselves. So if I keep taking care of everyone else, I never have to look at what I really need to take care of myself.
Yes.
So, and then I always have a reason that I'm not doing well. Well, it's because of everything going on with so-and-so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So, and I also appreciate the concept, and it's funny because this is where I so appreciate you and your philosophy, because I really vibe with it around that love is not enough. And I remember it makes me think of when I have a few exes that I call my favorite exes, because I do kind of rate them, right?
Yep.
And I remember having to have that. I said that so many times during our relationship where there was anyone that looked at us knew we were madly in love. But I kept coming back. I had to keep saying I know we love each other, but that's not all we need, right? All those things, love is all you need. It's not true.
No, I'm sorry, John Lennon, but
right? I know. And that's,
yeah.
I think for me, when it finally came time where I was really shown it was time to exit for once and for all, I literally had to look at myself and be like, okay, are you choosing to leave someone you are in love with? Because I'd had other separations where it was okay, the love had kind of fizzled or whatever, or something had really shifted. But I had to really recognize in this case, I was leaving someone where we were still in love with each other.
Yes.
And that is not easy.
That is one of the hardest ones, because you have so much attachment there that's
right.
already entrenched, and yet it is not right for you.
That's right.
Now, I think that's a sign of health, to be able to say no to someone you really, really love, because you're doing it for the right reasons. Yeah. That's actually a healthy move, to be able to get to that place. because
Not easy. I mean,
it's
you know,
leading
for
with
those
truth.
of you listening out there, yeah.
I like to
I
encourage.
like that, leading with truth, yeah.
I like to encourage people, if you follow the truth of a relationship, the love will always be there. But if you're always leading in with the love or attraction factor, you may not always have the truth of what's possible or what's really there. So I tell people, lead with truth, and that's why conscious dating is about a much more proactive, directive way of getting to know somebody. And it's different. It really is very, very different. I have a whole questionnaire of, things you need to know before you, ideally, I like to hopefully train my people, is that they don't have sex right away. Go through this questionnaire. Find out who this person is, because sex isn't a moral issue. It's an energetic issue. We get attached when we have sex with people. And when we get attached, then it's really hard to detach.
That's right.
When we actually discover, oops, you're really missing a whole lot, or you're kind of crazy.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and I didn't know that in the first 2 dates.
Yeah.
So I try to encourage people to go slow and get to know.
Yeah.
That's kind of my little slogan. And, go slow and get to know. This is oftentimes a perfect stranger. And I tell people, just even in the safe sex conversation, would you knowingly have sex with or without a condom? Doesn't much matter. With someone who has STDs unchecked or HIV? And everybody says no. But how do you know if you are on the first couple of dates getting all attached, all involved, and possibly and often with the wrong person? So if you lead with truth, you're going to really know who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And you do it proactively by understanding, what's your intention? What do you want for a relationship? What are you seeking? Do you want to just date and goof off? That's great, no problem. Do you want a serious relationship? And I'm telling you, it is so un-PC for a lot of people to just admit, I want to get married. I want to have a family. I want to live with a man. I want to live with a woman. It's really become like
So
almost a
crazy to me.
sin to admit that up front. But if that's really your heart's desire, then be brave and find your counterpart.
It's so interesting that you point that out, because I sometimes forget how non-common that is. And sometimes when I'm working with clients, like I also, because a lot of my clientele are already past, they've had their children or maybe teenagers, and I remind them, like, when we're looking at what we want in a relationship, like what we wanted 20 years ago is probably not what we want now, and that's okay. I'm in the looking for a husband, baby, daddy phase. You're obviously not, and that's okay. And so we have to recalibrate and look at what we want. And I'll tell you, I can really back up what you're saying, because in the dating process, I've seen, even though, I obviously haven't found my long-term partner yet, but I've been really blessed to be able to, from leading with truth, be like, this is really, this is where I'm at. This is some of my stuff within the first couple dates. And then quickly, by leading with truth, like, okay, no. And within a couple months, like, all right, well, we're obviously not on the same page, not going to work. Okay, cool. Peace.
Yeah.
And
much easier to exit from an early relationship than
That's
a
right.
relationship that you are very attached to, you're starting to live together, or you've bought a house together. And
That's
I'm
right.
telling you, I help people, destruct their relationships or heal their relationships that are that far without any real infrastructure of understanding. I have young couples that have been living together for a while, or even early marrieds, will come, and I'll give them the questionnaire. I go, do you know the answers of what your partner would say to these questions? And it's really enlightening for them to realize that there could be a good, 10 out of the 50 of just core, important basics that you got to know about the person you're going to share your life with. This is a long-haul commitment that most people intend and want. But if you don't know who that is over there, we'll figure it out. You can, but it's a painful way to do it. It's a very painful way to do it.
Yeah. So on that note, I was just saying to Cindy, I'm like, oh man, I'm like coughing a little bit. My nose starting to run. Like, this is I'm getting all kinds of stuff flowing. Like, obviously this is one of my areas where there's stuff to move, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, and it's one of the great questions that you had posed for me. How does the heart work differently from the head?
That's a big topic.
Yes, it is. And also, for those of you listening to this interview of the recording, there is a part 2. So if you're like, oh, I want more of this, just make sure you can go and listen to the second part.
The head is very logical. It's rhyme and reason. It's understanding. It's an intellectual process, and it's very information-based. And the heart is watery. That's why water is the element associated with emotions. So it doesn't always make sense, and that scares people. Also, emotions come very fiery. We have reactive emotions, we have non-reactive emotions, and it's the reactive emotions that make it difficult in relationship. And so we have a reactive self, and in that we have to understand where are they coming from. And because it's useful information when we have these reactions to life and exchanges, but at the same time to not become them. So emotions, we can either be sad, be angry, be frustrated, or we can have anger, sadness, and frustration. And they're two different relationships to our emotions. And they produce very different results. And, listeners, you all know, those times when you have been a certain emotion that has carried on for a time. But emotions are hailing devices for all you Trekkies out there. It's just information that's coming that says something is wanted and needed. Something needs tending. That's why it comes. It's like grief that comes up. We have to have something that helps us process death and loss. So we get the emotion of grief. And how we handle that grief, we either become it and succumb to it, or we have that emotion and we learn how to process out the pain of a particular loss. And they're two different experiences. And I'm sure you know that for yourself when you've been consumed by rage and been so hurt or whatever, or you realize, oh, I'm kind of hurt by that exchange. And well, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to call that person back and kind of work it out with them. They're two different relationships, and you have to understand how to tend the heart. And the heart needs regular clearing. When we are absorbing emotional content with everything we do each and every day.
Yes.
And we need to clear. And I tell my clients, you don't want to create cardiac constipation. If you have no way of clearing your heart on a regular basis, no consistent practice, you will end up with a lot of unfinished emotional content in your heart center. And just like it's, the key to health is your digestion. Let's tell, the truth. We need to evac every day. And if we don't, we're in pain, right? Yeah. And we don't think twice about that for a physicality, for a body.
Sure.
It's the same for the heart. And there are definitive practices you can do for yourself, with yourself, as a single person, and also as a couple. And it's called emotional processing, which is different from bitching and complaining and moaning and groaning.
That's right.
Because a lot of people think emotional processing is just that. But it's about really very focused clearing of the heart with consciousness, with intention, and getting over to solutions. And as you well know, if you're really reactivated or really hurting, you can't go to solutions too soon. And so many people make mistakes of that because they're uncomfortable with those uncomfortable emotions.
Yes.
And I tell my clients, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Find a way to welcome these uncomfortable, contractive emotions because they're there for a reason. And if we stuff them, if we deny them, or if we act them out, we make messes that now not only are we feeling emotional and having to deal with something, we now have created a mess we have to clean up. And when that's all bluster is all done, we still have to get back to doing the work of what do I want and need, and what's the right action to take. And so a lot of what I teach about emotional development is getting in touch with what are the true wants and needs. What's the truth? Again, following that truth theme. And then discovering what is the right action to take. so many of my clients do not know what's the right action to take in a lot of scenarios in love and love relationships. And to me, that's the saddest thing. That's the biggest toollessness is, well, what do I do when I'm upset at my partner? Or how do I handle this? And so when I break it down of how the heart is wired differently than the head, and see, it's not one or the other. It's not either or consciousness. It's both and. We need the head. We need our beautiful mind, like the movie, thinking clearly, understanding, and bringing compassionate listening to what is in the heart.
Yeah.
And I have a saying where I say, the body holds what the heart doesn't want the mind to know.
Say that again.
The body holds what the heart doesn't want the mind to know. And what that means is every piece of information that happens in our life is in our bodies and the cells of our bodies. And our bodies are a great ally for us in understanding our emotional nature.
Yes. Oh, now you're really getting, this is disease manifestation is one of my favorite things.
This is getting tingly.
Yeah.
So, and this brings in horse medicine, which is why I'm in the study of horse medicine as well. And horses and humans are very similar. They're very social. They're the way they communicate, the way we used to communicate as natives, that we've lost touch with. But the thing is, so the thing that you really want to focus on is, where's my heart and where's my head? Are they aligned?
Right.
And why the heart doesn't want the mind to know stuff is because the mind can really mess with stuff. You can make stuff up. You can misinterpret. You can get highly reactive on things that may be or may not be real. And so where a relationship happens is in communication. And so your communication skills must be really well honed when you're dealing with the emotional content of the heart. And so the bulk of what I teach people is communication practices. It's why I am a communications and relationship consultant, because you need both. You need the head and the heart to be fully aligned, and then the body's really happy and content and willing to offer up information freely. And so it's building an alliance with your head, with your heart, and your body together.
Wow.
And this is all fueled by spirit and your spirituality. And so you have the four counterparts of who you are, what makes up a human, in balance. And so they work together. And so the emotional piece is key, because the emotional piece is what drives the other three. And a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And so if you're having trouble physically, it's usually an emotional relatedness. If you're having trouble mentally, it's usually unfinished business emotionally. And so when you go to those areas, and when you can feel a disconnect from spirit or your spirituality or your spiritual practice, it's usually an emotional driven cause.
Yeah.
And I have a wonderful teacher, Master Sha, and he talks about you heal the soul and everything else will heal. And that's very, very true. But people in day-to-day living, they need to know the practices, practical practices of communicating the content of the heart and accessing that. And they need to be shown and told that. And so when people are, they really, really can take care of themselves. And what I can say is people just really, really do well. They really thrive. They can handle the uncomfortable. They can handle the challenges that come their way.
Yeah.
Because they're in a right relationship with their heart, and they're backed up and supported by their mind, and their body is thriving in that union, just inside of a itty-bitty living space of a body.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that we tiptoed into this topic, because I was just telling someone yesterday, especially at how much I can back up the concepts of how we start to feel things in the body too. And what did you say? It's issues of the heart that manifests in the body.
Absolutely.
Right? And I tell people a lot, like, I really do believe that most physical ailments are absolutely derived from emotional and spiritual imbalance. And I manifest in the body quickly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, within a day, if I'm
Yep.
not listening to something, boom, oh, my knee hurts. And I look
Yep.
up, but because spirit knows, I will, as soon as I have a physical pain, I will go get my little books and I will look up left knee pain. Oh, crap. Yep,
Yep.
that's true. I'm not dealing with that right now. Okay, well, and then I do some emotional, spiritual awareness work, move it, clear it, heal it. Knee feels better,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of understanding, and I was just starting to write a blog on this yesterday about how even, mainstream medicine is finally saying, oh, stress is one of the leading causes of disease and ailments. Yeah. Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
Let's all get on the same page from the last few thousand years of research that's been done in other cultures, right?
Yeah.
And just recognize how much our body does manifest things and give us signs, signals, speaks to us, especially if we're not listening in the other forms.
Yeah, it's very, very true. So I teach a body scan process that I've learned through the horse medicine training. And because if you're jammed in your heart and you don't know what you're really thinking and feeling, but the body will have it. It'll have the information.
That's right.
And when you access the information in the body, it'll bring you back to your heart each and every time. It's very powerful. And it's really good for people who have been enculturated. Yes, a lot of men, absolutely helps them access their heart. It isn't that men don't feel. I've worked with hundreds of men over the years. You just give them a safe environment and a listening heart, and they blather on.
That's right.
And so
I can absolutely verify
it's just that they've been trained and enculturated to not necessarily access
That's right.
the information.
Yep.
And so you give guys a safe environment, ladies, a safe environment to come out and tell their truth without bashing, then, they will tell you what's really going on. But we have to really create a safe environment and know how to do that so that we can come to this emotional processing process.
Brene Brown has a fantastic video that mentions this a little bit, and I cry every time I watch it. And I think it's the one on shame, perhaps, where she's talking about when she was speaking with a man about, vulnerability and all these things. And he goes, this man says to her, the issue is I feel like my wife and my daughter would rather see me die on my white horse than fall off of it. And it hit me so deep the way he phrased it, and how it's so often I see women wanting more sensitive and emotionally present men. But then on the flip side, as soon as a man shows emotions or cries or is vulnerable, now he's a big baby.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm definitely being extreme right now, but I've seen literally those exact phrases and situations happen.
Well, it's that being uncomfortable with the uncomfortable emotions.
Yes.
And here you are, you're my protector, you're my provider, and you're having problems?
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean about us? Instead of understanding the wisdom of having a guy who has a clear heart. Because it's the guys that do, disappear, that do either physically or emotionally, or the guys that, refuse to access their heart, that causes the problems in a lot of relationships for women. And so, like you said, when it does start happening, it's like if you judge emotions, negative emotions, as weakness versus as information that wakes us up to what is wanted and needed and how to take right action, you have to construct a new relationship and interpretation of negative emotion. And we have a very strong judgmental system out in our culture about negative contractive emotions. They're bad, they're wrong, they're awful. We should stuff them at all costs. You look at all the list of addictions that are out there, whether it's Haagen-Dazs to crack cocaine, it doesn't much matter.
Yeah.
That
How can we avoid?
That's all a function. Addictions are all a function of capping emotions. That's what that's about.
Anyone that knows my history knows that I can absolutely attest to that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so busyness, social alcoholism, which is, considered okay, and, all these things that are there, and all it is about avoiding the emotional content.
Yeah.
Making nice, being Pollyanna. Oh, we're fine. Oh, we're fine. I have a good friend who's, she's always fine, but she's not fine. She's got a lot of unfinished business in her heart and a lot of hurt and a lot of trouble in some of her key relationships. She's not getting what she wants and needs.
Yeah.
She's not addressing it directly with the
Yeah.
people. And that's pain.
Yeah.
And then that catches up to you when you're under high levels of stress. When you have a lot of unfinished business and then you're really up against, a death in the family, cancer, loss of a job, a bankruptcy, whatever you may have to face and go through, it just adds to that stress.
Yep.
So it's powerful stuff to understand the heart. It's really powerful. It's why we came here. We came here to understand love. And love does heal all things. And yes, you always want to bring love into the equation and return to love, lead with love, absolutely, while you are addressing other practices.
And there's the answer to all of our problems.
Yeah.
Boom.
There are answers.
My head's spinning just because this is so significant, and that's why I'm so grateful we decided to have a part 2 to this, because I've been in the industry almost a decade too, and over some of them, I work with highly successful business people that are they're running multi-million-dollar businesses. They've got a lot of great stuff going on, and one of the biggest issues that I still see happening is the challenge of being in partnership, right? And for a lot of women, the challenge to being vulnerable and confusing vulnerability with weakness, right?
Yeah.
And I know hands down, like I already had a natural inkling for vulnerability and without even knowing that that's helpful. And like when you're in the industry, like sharing part of your story helps people know, like, and trust you more. I was naturally doing that because I was young when I started. So I knew to get credibility, I had to like share some of what's up.
Yeah.
And so vulnerability was never really a concern for me. But when I started to recognize how many women saw vulnerability and weakness as synonymous, I was like, oh, we've got some work to do culturally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And especially you mentioned about business. I'm not a big business consultant, but I do work with some small business partnerships because a lot of times they're friends or their husband and wife teams.
Sure.
And a lot of times they'll do all the legal stuff and some of the logistical stuff, but they forget about the relational understandings and practices that need to be in a business, and just simple things of just different roles.
Yeah.
And if a husband and wife is working together and the wife is listening as wife to the husband who is boss, you're going to have a misfire in that. You will.
Sure.
And so a lot of times what I bring is just infrastructures, just basic relational practices and conflict resolution practices in the workplace. How are you going to tend the hearts that are going on? I've worked with a lot of business owners for them to understand you are mother and father for them. And whatever the relationship is with their mother and father, they're going to bring to work, because wherever we go, there we are.
That's right.
And so it's good to understand yourself, and that's why you need to know, well, who am I? What's my unfinished business? What's my past? What are my influences?
Yes, and that's what I was gonna say too. Is it's I think that's. Do I want to open this? I'll quickly open this can of worms, right? Just because I think it's part of the concern I have with the whole emphasis on positivity, right? And I am a fan in some capacities of the positive psychology movement of like, let's focus on the positive, like what can we gain from this? Great.
Yes.
However, what I'm also big on is knowing and understanding our darkness and keeping it close in a way of knowing if we're dropping into that energy, right?
Yes.
Knowing where we're acting from. Are we acting from our darkness that maybe we've become very comfortable with over decades of being in it, right?
Yes.
And what I mean by darkness is the example I always give is my ability to be highly manipulative if I want to. I mean, having a background with dealing, with my own addiction, also being a trained counselor where we're trained to manipulate behaviors, right?
Yes.
I can use a lot of that energy for evil if I want to,
Yeah.
right? And so knowing that I have that capacity, and then knowing it so well that I can literally feel if my energy's shifting into that dark space, and then going, ooh, let me choose differently, right? But so many people are afraid and don't want to. Oh no, I don't have. Oh really? Because I'm pretty sure you're human, so you probably do have some darkness, right?
Yeah.
And to couple that with not avoiding those dark emotions, or the way, I mean, people label them as dark, but like sadness, grief, upset, pain. I always say to my clients, I say, my goal is never to make you happy or for you to be happy all the time. And sometimes at first they're like, what do you mean? Right? And I'm like, no. My goal is if you used to have something really challenging happen and it knocked you down for 3 days, I want to get that bounce back to 3 hours. How does that sound? Yeah. And that's what happens is we get the tools to bounce back. I'm big on resilience, right?
Yep.
And struggles into strengths.
Yep.
We're not going to avoid it. We're going to go, oh man, this sucks.
Yeah.
How can I move this energy? How can I really feel what I need to feel, gain what I need to gain, and start to release this and know that this is part of the human experience. We are not going to be happy and go lucky all the time.
Nope.
I mean, I'm pretty sure me and my clients aren't on the path to Buddhahood. Believe that, right? But if we can make that bounce back faster, if we can make our recovery faster, then I think we're really winning.
Well, that's when we use emotions as information instead of becoming them. You just described perfectly the becoming of,
thank you.
of emotions. Instead of we have them, they are there to wake us up to something is wanted and needed. That's what's underneath our emotional, I call it the emotional spin cycle.
That's right.
Because everybody's got a reactive self. And in the emotional spin cycle self, essentially, we have a lot of things, but it's our contractive emotions. It's also our unfinished business, but it's in our enculturation, our life experiences, our negative thoughts, feelings, beliefs, attitudes. It holds a lot of content, and you got to understand what's in that to be able to have a command of that. And yeah, it is not about, this is the thing I love about horse medicine. Horses don't have a judgment on emotion. They just want to know, what are you thinking and feeling? Congruence is a survival mechanism in a herd of horses. They have to know what each member of the herd is thinking and feeling. And we are the opposite. We do everything to not show what we're really thinking and feeling.
Interesting.
Because we don't know how to handle the content. And when you learn how to handle that, you do have quick resilience. You do bounce back quickly.
Yeah.
It doesn't take you down for days, or you're fighting with your beloved for days or weeks on end, because you have the tools and the practices, but you also have the right attitude to be able to not judge what's coming up with the content. Judgment is really, it's just a sealer off of emotions. We're uncomfortable about something when we judge each other or certain things. So I say to you listeners, look at where you judge. It means something's uncomfortable for you. You're overweight, so you judge people who are fat. And it's because you're overweight and you ain't doing nothing about it. So that you have to step back and go, you know what? Until I do something about it, I have no right to bitch and moan. I just can't. And I'm not going to judge somebody else because I can't possibly know what the reasons are for their overweightness.
Yeah, we don't.
And the big picture and the big story. But the other thing you mentioned, and it's a very important piece, and it's a very important part of training that I do in every single project, no matter what people come for. And on my website, you can find out more of all the other projects I do. But every project, I teach this, and that's the punishing behaviors that we do to ourselves and others.
Yep.
Because like with couples, I tell couples, if you eliminate your punishing behavior practices inside your relationship, 70% of your pain will go away. And then you're left with just dealing with what's different about you and that you kind of like, don't like. And then we're sorting that out. But I encourage people to take a vow of non-harming. And what that means is even if you do weirdness on me, I do not give myself the right to lash out, to punish back, to harm, or do that evil thing that you mentioned, manipulative thing you mentioned. And everybody has been trained that when they don't get what they want and need, they're going to get you back. They're going to give you a cold shoulder. They're not going to call you back. They're going to make you wrong. They're going to do some variation of a theme of some kind of punishing behavior that says, I'm hurt. And you learn in a conscious, context, you learn to say I messages how you feel. That's assertiveness. The passive aggressive, and aggressive models of dealing with conflict are bankrupt. They don't work, and that's what fuels all the punishing behaviors. And I have a huge list of 50 or more traits that are possible, and I have people go through and circle the ones that they do. When push come to shove, when they get stressed, and that's in the book too, that whole list there where you could circle and go, oh yeah, I get sarcastic, oh yeah, I yell and raise my voice, and oh, I throw things. You know, everybody has their own
But we can't
pet.
shift it if we haven't brought awareness to it. And that's the thing. Is like, what we're not saying is like, look at all the things you do wrong. You suck, right? No, what we're saying is, let's just start off by recognizing we are not being taught this mainstream. If you've shown up to this interview, this information, you obviously have an interest in wanting to shift things. Now it's just time to start raising awareness and gaining tools, you know, which brings me to, because we are going to have a part 2. I'm so excited. But as we wrap up today, we've given a lot of content, and I'm curious, what's one of the biggest tools or tips you can give people to walk away with today that they can implement or start exploring?
Well, I want to just offer up the good news is we are all trainable.
That's right.
We are all trainable. And if you didn't get it at home, you can learn. You really can learn how to have healthy, great, vibrant, sustaining relationships. That doesn't have to be so fraught with a lot of learning curve pain. You really can get very, specific training foundations that has you thrive. So in terms of really take time to sit down with a legal pad in your jammies in bed and write out the things you know you want and need and require for love in a relationship. If you're single and you haven't met that beloved, your soulmate, then just get real clear about who it is you want and need. And then take a moment and tell the truth about why haven't you been standing for that? Where in your self-love, self-loathing matrix is off or off base? Look and see, what do you need to bring in? A lot of times when I teach conscious dating practices for people, what they discover is they actually need to spend some time really going down into the depths of self-love for a while. Because they realize, because in a beloved relationship, your ability to love yourself is really called to task. And you need a strong bandwidth of self-love. And this isn't self-centeredness or selfishness. It's self-loving practices. And when you think it, for all you spiritual people, the goddess doesn't not love herself. She absolutely also wants us to love ourselves. And unfortunately, self-love kind of got lost in the works and got replaced with you're being selfish, you're being self-centered to think about what you want and need. But all creations begin. You cannot create a house. You cannot create an ideal job. You cannot create a beautiful garden if you are not knowing what it is you want and need.
Yeah.
So that it starts there. Conscious dating starts there. And so spend time, doing that. And there's so much more to offer and share.
Yeah, which is why this is a 2-part interview. So I just am so grateful because I think we opened a good can of worms today.
Yes, we did.
So thank you so much for being here and for your time. And if there's just one thing you could shout to the world as we close, what would it be?
Lead with truth. Be a Green Beret for truth and authentic living. And you will do well. You will do very, very, very well.
Thank you so much, Cindy. So where can people find out more information about you?
My website is www.designingaccess.biz. And all my different projects and focuses are all explained there, and my contact information and my non-fee consultations, all that is all explained there, and pictures and more on the book, Path of the Golden Heart, and which I have a gift for you. You get to have one today. So yeah, and you can contact me directly. How many authors can you actually just call up and say, hey, I want to talk to you? And I'm very, very open to talking to anybody who wants to explore this subject matter.
Yeah, thank you for being so accessible.
You're welcome.
So it's been a pleasure, and I'm excited for part 2.
Yeah.
So thank you, and thank you for listening to Information and Inspiration with Jen Julius. For more information about me and to check out some previously recorded shows, you can go to jenjulius.com, or you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Jen Julius Coaching. So thank you so much for your time, for being invested in yourself, and for wanting to be part of the conscious choice for change. Thank you, and take care.